Have you noticed a surprising trend reshaping masculinity on your social media feeds? I know we have all seen more and more males popping up on the TL, wiping, mopping, decluttering, lighting candles, steaming. And the only thing I can say is, I like it. And the thought that popped into my medulla oblongata is, what a time to be alive. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying men have never cleaned or organized a thing. I'm just saying that for many years, and currently still, this is not representative of what people deem masculinity to be.
Help! Somebody! These drunk redneck truckers are trying to have their way with me!
Not while my scrotum is pressed up against my stomach in these jeans, they won't. Roadhouse.
From the many war movies, even presently, the ultimate man's man is wielding some sort of deadly weapon against a state-defined enemy. Even watching their fellow infantry soldier shot down, still progress bravely down the front lines, or a man lounging on the couch after a long day of bringing home the bacon, while his wife, who has had an equally long day, cleaning, taking care of the kids, has to then conjure up a delicious hearty meal, essentially turning the proverbial bacon into something worthy of Julia Child's cookbook.
I'm Julia Child. Today we're going to do coq au vin.
Now, I don't know if this was a projection of feminism back in the day, but I love the changing landscape around domesticity and manhood because it was never something that should have been separated by gender. But it is an evolutionary requirement for every single human, regardless of gender, to know how to prepare food, rid their environment of dust and debris, so you don't, I don't know, die from emphysema or some sort of bacterial infection. For generations, masculinity has been depicted in a rather narrow sense. Strength, stoicism, and dominance. But scroll through your social media today and you'll find a growing movement that's turning these old stereotypes on their head. Gender stereotypes were first cataloged in the United States in the 1970s, defining stereotypically feminine attributes such as gullibility, shyness, and compassion, contradicting masculine attributes of aggressiveness, independence, and leadership ability. Although societal expectations around how women and men should behave have evolved since the 1970s, it seems we have taken short steps and not leaps, as such standardized test sheets have even showed themselves recently at a 2018 UK training event where women were given this test sheet to determine whether they veer more towards the masculine or feminine. I know we have all seen depictions of women back then, predominantly white housewives, donning an apron at what seems to be all times of the day or bent over the week's washing, while even older depictions may show women knitting or doing some other sort of domestic labor. The media, which we are discussing in this video essay, in whatever format, has also done much to spoon feed us these gender narratives. Several analyses of television programs have also shown how representations of men and women are very often consistent with gender stereotypes. Girls were often portrayed as focusing more on their appearance, as well as being judged for their appearance.
Look at your hair. Look at that blouse. And the way that skirt hangs. And those socks. You don't seem to be exactly the type to make this guy behave like a human being.
The same focus on aesthetics was found in sports news coverage, which was starkly different across genders and tended to focus on women athletes' appearance.
It is the twirl that has heads spinning this morning.
Can you give us a twirl and tell us about your outfit?
Featuring overly simplified descriptions versus technical language on coverage of men athletes. In addition, coverage of women athletes was more likely in sports perceived to be more feminine or gender appropriate. On the contrary, prolific athlete and tennis superstar Serena Williams is constantly depicted in an overly masculine way, most notably in a caricature in the Herald Sun, and comments on her appearance seems to even pervade her career achievements or accolades. The caricature and masculinization of Serena Williams narratives in the media underscore the double bind faced by some female athletes, especially those who challenge traditional gender norms through their dominance and physicality in their sports. This also further reveals deep-seated biases surrounding gender and race that run rampant in sports media. On the other hand, men have had a seemingly glowing, but one can now say limiting portrayal in the media. They have been portrayed in early daguerreotypes, I had to Google this, smoking pipes while women were juxtaposed knitting or using other domestic props. Men in old-fashioned media were portrayed loosening their tie after placing their briefcase on a chair, taking a seat at the dinner table, awaiting the hot meal prepared by their wives. There are some images where men are depicted doing domestic tasks that was not pervasive at the time. Predominantly, men worked outside and women took care of the home, and very rarely did those roles intersect. There has been a term coined to describe this phenomenon, the man box, according to Michael Flood. Most of these narratives presented in media tend to fit into the man box, showing less empathy than their female counterparts, being muscular in stature, engaging less actively in child rearing, or being made to appear hilariously inept at any household chores they attempt to do. This, as put by Liz Plank, these messages shape and impact the perceptions and treatment of fathers, but they may also have an intergenerational influence. The biggest predictor of kids' gender role views is based on how much time their fathers spend on housework. Since we're discussing portrayal in media, this would be a good time to segue into our next topic and the main reason why we're here today: Black male lifestyle influencers and their impact on the discourse around masculinity and domestic work. Now, I have consumed quite a bit of cleaning and organization content lately, mostly Operation Nikki, but even before that, I followed and still continue to follow Carlos Harris Jr. Carlos Harris Jr. is the first of the male lifestyle organization content creators that I had personally come across. Like Nikki said, these bitches my sons. I actually don't think it's a crime to be influenced by someone, especially if the content is positive. And he also believes this, as he gives free game all the time and sells resources centered around content creation and monetizing lifestyle content, etc. But I remember seeing it on my timeline and immediately following, because it was honestly so refreshing to see a heterosexual male openly, visually, and verbally defy gender conformist ideals for what a man is supposed to do or be, and prioritize not only cleaning and organization, but also personal hygiene and skincare. Like, come on. A man that owns a Dyson and an air purifier. What I immediately did after adding every single item to my Amazon cart was attempt to analyze my own preconceived notions of masculinity and manhood, albeit a result of socialization and media brainwashing. I even remember hearing the term metrosexual for the first time and thinking, what is that? A man that lives in a city? When it actually, in simple terms, means a man who takes care of himself, a well-groomed man. But even then, that term seemed to have a negative connotation behind it, as if that is not the type of manhood to be desired. Well, now we have the advent of metrosexuals, and I'm honestly loving it. I then started to see Derwin Hu, right? That's his Instagram name. Derwin Hu, who I believe is following more the inspiration of Operation Nikki and does primarily deep clean and organization content. And I mean, the man was cleaning things I hadn't even seen being cleaned before. I mean, the man had gadgets and gizmos out the wazoo. My Amazon cart was yet again packed with gadgets I did not need and purchases that I would not be able to recover from fiscally. How this content contributes to rampant consumerism is another topic for another day. Again, it was an easy follow because I admired the redefining through visual media of men doing domestic labor, the destigmatizing and degendering of household tasks that we should all be doing. We should all strive for a cleaner space. We should all be pulling our fridge out more often and swiffering behind it. I think most of us can all agree that when we watch this content, it makes you want to get up and clean something, wipe something, dust something down, wipe that dusty bookshelf that's been bothering you for a week. These videos make me feel like I've never cleaned before, honestly. Most importantly, though I think this is one of the best ways that influence can be used, just like you have tons of feminine hygiene and health content, I I love that this content is ushering in and influencing a whole new generation of men that won't rely on their women to do the cleaning, who will be equal partners with their spouses in terms of domestic work and childcare, who won't be hilariously inept at basic housework and will not see them working as an excuse to opt out of housework. Because in modern society, women are working just as much, maybe even more than men. I don't know, blame girl boss culture. I also follow a lot of husbands who do content around cleaning up when their wife is at work just to give her rest when she comes home, or take care of the kids' nighttime routine and compromise so that their wives are able to experience just as much relaxation as a husband in the 1960s. I then started to see Drew Walls pop up, right? Now, the way I got introduced to Drew was through Derwin Who, posting the now popular Target Run style video that Drew typically does or went viral for, and several others doing parodies of his content on social media. The distinctive shot being parodied is him recording himself pulling into the Target parking lot and pulling out when done, and walking away from what I assume to be his tripod and going into the store. Now, I must admit, when I went to his page and I saw these videos, I definitely cackled. Maybe due to my own social anxiety, a bit, because when you think about it in a practical sense, it's pretty comical to set up your phone on a tripod, walk away from it, then come back to get it, set up the tripod in front of the parking space you want to pull in as if you have CCT following you alone, and then retrieve the tripod. This one was the most egregious shot. To set the tripod up at the cash register, cash out, walk away, and then come back to retrieve said tripod. That tripod must see him come in and say, here we go again. But again, the content, I believe, does less harm than good. You know, most of the criticism surrounds him having too much time on his hands or accusations of inadequate masculinity because of his content. Now, while I have to admit that watching someone, anyone, man or woman, doing something so intimate as shower, like, should we be here in the bathroom right now, watching you sensually soap yourself to Mooney Long's song? But one cannot deny that this is a popular niche for content creation right now. And what if, hear me out, times have changed. Social media is a thriving industry right now, and the successful players are bringing home the bacon. Isn't that the phrase and images that we were inundated with from the past as the prime reflection of masculinity? Drew himself often responds to a few comments saying that he does this to provide for his daughter. Reactions to male lifestyle and cleaning content, when I look at the comment section of Derwin Who, I see mostly women asking, what product did you use? Or what was in the mixture? And declaring their attraction towards him for wiping the staircase banister and the fan blades. While men comment that he makes them not feel clean enough, or some men saying they are cleaning right now. On Carlos's videos, there are a mixture of comments as well. Women and men lauding him for teaching young men about proper hygiene, and a few haters that, in a few or so short words, comment on him having too much time on his hands or feminizing him based on his content. Pervasively, the majority of men, from what I have seen from the comments, generally remark that these depictions make them feel inept, inadequate, lacking. Some women too, yay, equality, right? But as with any change, there is to be expected to be pushback or resistance. Some comical, like the ones that say, chill, my girl's on this app, or the more negative criticism that accuse them of undermining traditional masculinity or promoting consumerism, or some who say this is for people who don't have a real job. I don't know, you try to set up all these tripods outside and getting all these angles while being ogled and ridiculed for it in public. I couldn't do it, but I dare say it seems like work to me. I think this is progress, and the possibility of good far outweighs the possibility of harm. Let's not let the core message get lost in technicalities, which is breaking free from restricted gender roles. I would be remiss if I didn't add that most of the criticism was coming from Black men, and I believe this has to do in part with the even higher societal standards for Black manhood that are even more stringent and less fluid than those of other races, and far less forgiving. I think we can all agree, though, that the fabric of masculinity is incredibly diverse, nuanced, and constantly evolving. Hence, why we also have these guys.
There's a magical power amongst men, which has been forgotten and lost. Friends should bring out the worst in you. And when I say the worst, I mean, you know, when you're with your boys and you're loud, and you feel aggressive, and you're about it, and you'll talk to that bitch, who cares if she says no?
And still have this guy, who sues his wife for not doing chores. What I like about this content is more than just cleaning or organization. It's about embracing a fuller expression of human capability, regardless of gender. Consider how you perceive these roles, or what preconceived notions about gender did you have of your own, and assess whether these characteristics are things we can all do, regardless of gender. And try to remember how you formed these ways of thinking. Where did that come from? What can we all do to support and encourage positive shift? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about a cleaner space, but a broader understanding of what it means to be a man in today's world. And one final question. Did you know what a metrosexual is? I bet you didn't, did you?